everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about boundaries. I'm going to start out by apologizing for the ridiculous light in this video because there are a lot of clouds today and there's only so much I can do in post. But boundaries are something that comes up around here time and again, and it's for good reason. Boundaries are about protecting your values, and if you're here, then you're probably interested in protecting the values of your time, your energy, and your well-being. But boundaries are sort of complicated ideas. You may have come up with the idea that you need firmer boundaries around when you're willing to work. I think that's great. I think we all need better boundaries around when we're willing to put our time into work. But just because you came up with the idea that you need more boundaries doesn't mean that your work is done. Boundaries are basically thoughts, which means no one can see them. You have to do the work of communicating the boundaries and protecting them, because some people, even when they do know that they're there, will still push them over and over. And those boundary pushers will keep pushing on that boundary, especially if you have leaky boundaries, which means that sometimes you're a hard ass about protecting that line and other times you just aren't. So maybe one weekend you're really good about it and you don't work on the weekend, but then the next weekend you get a phone call or an email, and the next thing you know, you've put in 4 hours on a Saturday. Again. First of all, let me say, don't worry, it's not just you. We have all put down a boundary and had somebody push it over and over until we've basically just run out of energy to defend it. In fact, some of you might be like me and are in burnout or are headed towards burnout or have already been burned out because of boundaries. Maybe you never had any, which was my problem. I didn't have any boundaries around my well-being. Or maybe you had boundaries, but they were leaky and you had people that stomped all over them. You need to look at boundaries as these living things that need to be taken care of on a regular basis. The good news is that if you do take care of the boundaries, then they will take care of you. So let's take a deep dive into boundaries and talk about how you figure out what your personal boundaries are, how you put them in place, and how you defend them. In order to figure out what your boundaries should be around, you need to figure out what your values are. Some of them might leap to mind, but not be particularly specific. For example, I value family, but how that translates into a boundary is not particularly specific. I can't just say, sorry, Bob, can't come to work because I value family. I'm going to give you 2 exercises here that will help you figure out what your more specific values are. And by doing this process, it will become more clear around what you should be drawing those boundaries. Because if you know what you value and why you value them, then you'll be able to set that limit with other people. The first one is to take something that's sort of a surface level so that you can dig down about why you value that thing. The reason this is important is because a lot of people value surface things, but for different reasons. For example, a lot of people value their job even though they might hate going to it, but they might value their job for different reasons. One person might sit down and say, I value my job. Well, why do you value your job? Because I make money. Well, why is that important? Because of financial freedom. Okay, why is that important? Because it allows me to help other people. There you go, you've hit it. One of the reasons that you value your job is because you have a value of charity. Another example could be that you value your job because it makes money, because that allows you to buy plane tickets, which allows you to travel. Your value may be around travel, or it might be something even deeper, like having a value around the freedom that the traveling gives you. And then another person might say, I value my job because my job involves helping others. And by helping others, I'm improving their lives because I have a value around well-being. So you arrive at these different core values by taking something that you value on a surface level and digging down into it until you get generally a one-word answer. So for example, you probably don't just value your free time because you're not working. You value it because that free time gives you time to spend with your friends, because relationships are a core value. Or maybe it gives you time to relax and recharge because mental well-being is one of your core values. If you're struggling to get to the bottom of some of these values by just asking yourself why, then try doing this with a friend. Explain the exercise to them. Tell them your surface value, like your job or your free time, and then just have them keep asking you why or why is that important over and over again until you start seeing a pattern. At some point, you're just going to keep saying the same words or the same type of words over and over and over again because you've hit your core value, like relationships or well-being or freedom. Another way that you can get to your core values is by taking a quick trip to hell. This is actually one of the more fun exercises to do, and it can be very enlightening, not just about your values, but about the direction that you want to take your life. Take a moment and picture the absolute worst version of your life. If you want, you can take this more specific, and it could be the worst version of your personal life or the worst version of your work life. Then go on and describe that situation in detail. If it was a job, would you be working in a tiny cubicle with a boss breathing down your neck all the time who's constantly stealing all the credit for your hard work? Or would you be alone in a dark basement with no one to talk to and nothing to do but file a mountain of paperwork? Fun fact, this was actually a temp job that I had, and I lasted 2 days. Once you've outlined your hellscape, you can start to think about why these things would make you so miserable. Then that should give you a clearer idea about what you do value in life so that you can start drawing some boundaries around those things to protect them. Now that you've done the deep work to figure out what your boundaries are going to be for, now comes the hard part. So if when you were sorting through your boundaries and you realized you had a boundary around family, and really more specifically about spending certain times with your family, now you got to figure out how you're going to set this up. For example, I have a value around spending time with my family, specifically around Friday movie and pizza nights. We've been doing this for the last year, and it's just a way for us to come together and relax and kick off the weekend. So what does knowing this mean? It means that when people are asking me for meetings or asking me to come to their Zoom events that are on Friday nights, it's a hard pass for me. So anytime someone needs time for me, it's my job to be clear that I have a boundary around Friday nights, and usually I explain to them why. This is a personal choice, whether you decide to tell someone why you have a boundary or not, but I feel like people are generally curious and then understanding when you explain why you have a boundary. I also think that this helps empower those around me. If I say, no, I will not meet on a Friday night because I value my family time, then that helps other people see that they don't have to do everything that a job or a volunteer experience is asking of them. And that empowers them to say, no, you know what? I have a boundary too. So the first part of this is the communication. I try to make it as clear as soon as possible when we start talking about, do we have time that we can meet? Remember, no one can see your boundaries, so unless you can communicate them clearly and firmly, you can't expect anyone else to honor them. Then the second part is defending this boundary, because that's going to happen more than you would like. This is the real reason that it is so important for you to figure out what this value is behind this boundary. You need to remember the fundamental importance that this boundary holds for you so that you can continue to have the energy to defend it, because you're going to have to defend it over and over. I have someone in my life that I have made my Friday night boundary clear to over and over, and they continue to try to have meetings on Friday night. And I just keep saying no. To be fair, people can't see your boundaries, so it's easy for them to forget them the first few times, so don't take that personally. Most people are not trying to take advantage of your willingness to give them your time and energy. However, you are likely to encounter someone that's going to push your boundaries every chance they get. Just remember that just because it's the 400th time that they have asked you to work late or have a meeting on a Friday night does not mean that you need to say yes. It's your job to continue to say, no, I don't do that because. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but if you have someone in your life that is constantly pushing your boundaries, no matter how many times you have reminded of them, you might want to consider how much time you spend with that person. The person that keeps pushing my Friday night boundary is only a factor around once a month, and it will only be for about a year. So I've decided to just keep reminding them of my boundary. However, if this was someone that I was in a friendship with and they kept doing this, I might wonder why they were actually in the relationship with me if it wasn't really for the friendship after all. Remember that while there is this personality trait / coping mechanism that is people pleasing, which might be something that you're struggling with right now, which is why you wouldn't put boundaries in place, there is also the opposite personality trait. So on one side, you have the people pleaser that is willing to sacrifice their own needs and time and energy to make other people happy. And then on the other side, you have the takers who are happy to sacrifice your needs and time and energy for their wants. These are the bosses that want you to work overtime but are never there when you're in the office. Or that family member that is constantly calling you to complain so that they can make you miserable too. Or the friend that always needs you to pay for the dinner or for you to take them somewhere. What all this means is that if you start setting boundaries and defending them, some of your relationships might change. Hopefully, most of the people in your life will be cheering you on because they want to see you happy and healthy. However, almost all of us are going to have one or two people in our lives that are going to resent you for your boundaries because they were actually taking advantage of you and benefiting from you not actually having any boundaries. Some of these people will continually push your boundaries to see if they can get you to give them up out of sheer frustration. Some of them will make you feel bad about standing up for yourself, and some of them will be downright belligerent and try to force you to do what they want you to do. Remember, this is their issue, not yours. Don't be afraid to get some distance from that person, or if you really care about them, having a deep heart-to-heart so that you guys can come to an agreement about why you put this boundary in place and some kind of compromise that works for both of you while you continue to maintain your boundary. And if you can't come to a compromise, then it might be time for you to consider what's more important, this relationship or that value you're trying to protect. Before you go, make sure you hit the like button because it really helps me get this video in front of more people that need it. And also hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here we go. Come on, clouds, you're killing me. Firmer boundaries when... Oh my God, the light, come on. Some of them might leap to mind, but not be particularly. For example, I have a few, oh my God. It's gonna be a long day like this. Pizza and movie nights. Friday night boundary cleared 2